Hello, my name is Netusha Naidu. I am 26 years old. I am the president and co founder of Imagined Malaysia, a non governmental organization. I have recently started work in the organization as an executive researcher upon receiving funding to do an online campaign on the history of race and racial discrimination from an anti-racist perspective. I'm a historian in training. However, I had done an undergraduate degree in international relations at the University of Nottingham, Malaysia campus. And despite the fact I come from a political science kind of background, I had a wonderful mentor who is a historian of Malay studies and the Malay world to have trained me and made me the historian that I am today. He encouraged me to apply for a scholarship so that I could continue my postgraduate studies and have a start in an academic career. So, thank God, with a lot of hard work, persistence, and encouragement, I managed to secure a scholarship from the Tunku Abdul Rahman Fund in St. Catherine's College. This is where our first Prime Minister had acquired his LLB, his law degree, and I managed to complete recently an MPhil in World History at the University of Cambridge. I think education plays a really important role in your career development. However, I also think and believe in the need to critically evaluate what an education means. I think that education is associated with a lot of privilege, and there's a lot of barriers of entry into getting a good education. So I consider myself really privileged to have had the opportunity and support system to go to a place like Cambridge University to pursue my masters, and of course begin have a get the ball rolling for a career in academia as a historian of Southeast Asia, to have been able to publish my work and whatnot. So despite thinking that education needs to be unpacked, I still feel that everyone deserves the right to have an education, and that it should be an issue of equal opportunity, not something up for debate and an issue of luck. So, for if I were to give advice to young girls out there regarding education, I think uh, it's really important that young women today understand the value of pursuing an education and giving it their all. And of course, most importantly, education should reflect your core self and core beliefs. So, young women should embrace autonomy and agency in making the choices of what they would like to pursue rather than what is set by societal standards. So, if you want to be an engineer, despite what a male dominated industry can be, yes, you should focus on that and harness on your strengths and reflect on your weaknesses or shortcomings, because I don't really believe in the idea of weaknesses. But it's really important to prioritize that you have the right to choose, and education is a great way to be a platform to jumpstart your career, but also to safeguard your well being. I've always been quite fascinated with history since I was young, and it seemed like a dream job to go on this adventure and uncover this mysterious past. And yeah, I was pretty much influenced by a lot of movies when I felt I wanted to be a historian. And I think I was when I was in my when I was Form 5, yeah, when I was 17 years old, I learned about how there were people who would study for a good deal of their lives, get paid for it, and once they got a PhD, they continue studying and writing for the rest of their lives, and they're known as academics and experts. And I was like, oh my god, you mean I could do that? Oh, sign me up. So and of course history was something I was really interested in. And during my A level exams I just started watching lots of documentaries on Southeast Asian history. A lot of them were produced and led by a very known Malaysian historian, a very well known Malaysian historian named Farish Noor. And and when I started engaging with this work and looking at his documentaries, I kind of felt, this is what I want to do as well. This is my dream. Could I pursue it? Could I fulfill it? Um, why don't I try? So during my gap year, I met a lot of people who saw my potential and encouraged me. And when during this gap year, I enrolled in the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative. I was selected to go to Temple University to attend sessions on interfaith dialogue and interreligious harmony, interracial conversations. And when I was there, I had a very wonderful friendship with the founder of the institute, Dialogue Institute at Temple University, and his name is Professor Leonard Swidler. He's 93 years old this year. And when I spent a lot of time with him engaging in really deep conversations about history, religion, social theory, and things like that. And I remember him telling me that, I really had the knack and potential, and most importantly, the love and empathy to do this kind of work, to do history, to do the work of history for healing, you see, and transformative justice. And of course, then after that, my parents was more supportive of me wanting to go down the unconventional route. And I did a BA in international relations. And when I was there, that's where I met my mentor, Sumit Mandal, who persuaded me and encouraged me and really believed in me, even at a time where I did not see any value in what I could do and my future and my potential as an academic. At that time, I think it was because I felt like, oh, being an academic requires a lot of privilege, a lot of money, and I didn't see myself as someone who could get a scholarship because I wasn't the brightest student in school, you see. Um, but he told me that, look, I know you don't believe it, but I think you have what it takes to go and pursue a career in history and become a historian. You have a lot of passion for it. And so in my first year, he asked me, I think you should start prepping to apply for Cambridge for masters and get the Tunku Abdul Rahman scholarship. And I was like, he must be joking, right? But no, he wasn't. And he said, look, just trust me, just do as what I say, and you may not believe me, but know that I believe in you. And until you believe in yourself, know that I have a lot of faith in you becoming a historian. So just trust me in this process, okay? So yeah, we went along, and I spent a lot of hours reading and discussing and working on my writing. And finally, I graduated from University of Nottingham with a first class, and I went on to do my MPhil. And though I lost a lot of faith and I was very discouraged because of the environment and feeling a bit isolated and lonely, um, and of course COVID makes this all much worse. I graduated with a distinction for my dissertation on the history of self-determination in southern Thailand. So yeah, so I guess it's really important to have someone believe in you, and until you believe in yourself. So I finally come around to having faith in my ability to be a historian and not um, be um, be ashamed of anything, and trying to let the imposter syndrome take over and inhibit my real potential. I think one of the biggest rewards of choosing this career line has been to really have this opportunity to think about social issues, because history is not just about the past, right? And it's not stuck in the past. It very much lives with us, and we carry history in our bodies, our minds, and in all the spaces that we inhabit. And in my line of work, I'm very much interested in research in conflict in Southeast Asia, um, because in Southeast Asia, we have difficulty dealing or confronting with violence and legacies of trauma. So, in uncovering this past and then dealing with the present day inequalities or injustices, I think that we give ourselves an opportunity to heal. So, one of the most valuable lessons I had learned from my work was how learning history and having a very empathetic gaze and trying to treat history as an intimate part of our lives can be important for marginalized communities. In this case, I work a lot on Malays in southern Thailand, a very oppressed and abused community in the state of Thailand, and how a big part of untangling and facing with traumatic past and giving a rewriting history so that it grants more agency can be very important and heal a lot of people so that we can move towards peace building efforts. And there's a lot of flexibility in the work of being a researcher. Most researchers work on a flexible timeline, and as someone with a lot of conditions, I have a chronic illness called endometriosis, and that prevents me from working in rather strict workplace environments, because it can be very debilitating at times when I get a flare up. So yeah, being able to dictate your own terms and making sure you are in an environment that isn't ableist, racist, and sexist um, is really important. So I feel like I have the privilege and opportunity to make my own world, and that's the greatest gift anyone could have, I believe. I do think that a lot of women in academia or in the field of research are at the receiving end of a lot of gender based discrimination. And in my case, it's coupled with the fact that skin color, also plays in the picture. And we know that Black, Indigenous, and people of color face a disproportionate amount of discrimination and suffer from imposter syndrome in workplaces that tend to be male dominated, or even white male dominated for that matter. So when I was pursuing an MPhil in world history at Cambridge, I was at the receiving end of a lot of microaggressive racism and also sexism, which had, of course, exact, um, made my imposter syndrome even worse, and I started doubting whether I had potential or future as an academic or as a historian. So I think that these are issues that we need to take seriously, and it's a good thing that we have a lot of senior BIPOC women academics who are working very hard to voice out these issues of discrimination. And yeah, if I could give some examples of the discrimination I faced, there was a lot of gatekeeping, because it's not politically correct to outwardly say someone is not qualified because of their race or their gender in a lot of these spaces, which are supposedly more modern or progressive or whatever. So I was often, my credentials were often put in question because I did not do a BA in history. I did a BA in international relations, and it shouldn't matter anyway what you did in your BA when you go on to do your postgraduate studies. But somehow this was something that was nitpicked, and of course, there were moments where I had classmates tell me that I wouldn't be sitting in this room with them if their ancestors had not come to Malaya and colonized and brought my people education um, as well. So yeah, very upsetting and distressing. But this is one of the tough challenges of being a woman of color in this area of work. And in the context of Malaysia, I'm also still an ethnic minority. And I guess what makes me a bit different as well is that I specialize in Malay studies. So my race gets brought up a lot. People are always pointing out that I'm a Malaysian woman of Indian descent working on um, conflict in southern Thailand, which seems a bit strange, but given how politics has pervaded our society for so long, it is not um, not surprising that my identity as a Malaysian Indian woman keeps being brought up in a lot of the spaces, and just reminds me how exceptional I am in my community, I guess. And I hope that I'm no longer an exception, and would like more Malaysian Indian women to pursue a career in research and also have like a sense of community in doing this work, because it is difficult. Not only is it male dominated, but there's just a lot of underlying currents and foundational institutional inequalities in these spaces that we're entering into. That, of course, then goes to my point about how if I could make my field of work more inclusive, I think ableism, racism, and sexism affect research a lot. And then, in terms of universities, need to put in place um, more policies so that they become less toxic to people who have a lot of these conditions or have these identities or markers attached to them. Chronic illnesses or mental health. Um, their identity, positionality, and of course gender. So I'm lucky in the sense that I have my own NGO, and I'm able to start putting in better practices so that it's more inclusive. And of course, it's a work in progress. I wouldn't say I have it all in order, but one needs to start to unlearn so that they can learn new norms and become better at being inclusive. In my ideal world for working women, I think that one is that women are not discriminated for balancing caretaking responsibilities and their career development, but also having supportive networks and systems as well as partners to make sure that they are able to balance both. And at the same time, women shouldn't be shamed for not childbearing or raising a family and choosing to focus on a career. So if I could put it very quickly, what the ideal world for working women should be is that she has all the choices, right, to making those choices as long as they do not hurt others and um, without being shamed. That social conditioning does not inhibit her choices, and that working women all have equal opportunity to thrive. Being a historian, particularly in Malaysia, tends to be a very male-dominated field. Though this is despite the fact that we have many women who are historians from our country, but because I think they don't have a lot of, they're not under the public eye so much. They do not get recognized. So that's why efforts like women who know history are really important. Women who know history of Southeast Asia. These are really important initiatives to recognize the women historians in our field. I think society collectively has not tried to thwart my career. Rather, it's the opposite. I had a lot of support from a community external to me. This includes my fieldwork contacts, in Kelantan, which is where my research specializes in the border of Patani and Kelantan. And I've had a lot of encouragement from fellow graduate students, and of course, my mentors has played a big role. Academics, NGO has generally NGO or civil society scene has been generally supportive of my career development. I think I've faced more pushback from my own family rather than society because I'm a first generation academic and my family, everyone has gone into more white collar professions. They work in corporate or some have become engineers, a lot have become lawyers and accountants. But the one commonality is, of course, my mom is a teacher, and my mom was the first person in the family first woman, the first person to get a master's in education. And my mom has always valued education. So I was very, very lucky that, I had a mom who was an educator because there was a lot of pushback from other aspects of family when I told them I wanted to go pursue a PhD and become a historian. I had an uncle who told me that, oh, like, what? You want to be a lecturer? In the most patronizing and condescending tone. And I thought it was so puzzling because educators play such an important role in our society. And of course, the next generation of leaders or just like everyday people, education and educators play such a core part of society, and it was very strange to have been at the receiving end of condescension because I wanted to be an educator just like my mother. So strange, very strange. I think, yeah, gender norms and stereotypes do affect everyone and condition me, my career choices and journey. I think that um, a lot of times women who go into academia or want to pursue a career in academia are shamed for the kind of like lack of work-life balance, which is not true. I know quite a number of female academics who have you know managed to pursue a illustrious career while also raising a family. So things like, oh, how are you going to have kids, you'll be too old by the time you finish your PhD or things like that. But there are also people, women who have conceived and had children while having a PhD, of which like academia and a lot of institutions have had difficulty trying to make the necessary adjustments so that these things become more viable, achievable. So yeah, a lot of conditioning, and this also adds on to more barriers of entering into academia for women because the institutions are foundationally accommodating to men and the needs and interests of men rather than women who have childbearing and caretaking responsibilities. So there's a need to untangle all these things and disrupt them. And in that sense, it has informed a lot of my decisions. But for now, I'm just unapologetically wanting to pursue my career, and I don't have anything to stop me, and I refuse to let anything stop me, even if it's stereotypes about motherhood and whatnot. But a really important part of success, I think, and for myself was actually um, just mastering the confidence to uh, articulate your needs, your boundaries, and what you would like to do, your ambition. And of course, a lot of people are going to shake in their boots when they know a woman's really ambitious and unapologetic about it. But trust me, that's like the best thing you could do for yourself. I would like to quote my friend, a very good friend of mine, who gave me advice that's really powerful, especially if you're a woman of an ethnic minority and a woman. Just muster the courage and confidence of a white man. Trust me, it works. So, not very politically correct, but it is what it is. And but I hope that just kind of paints a picture of what is the level of confidence you need. And of course, society might look at you and say, "Oh, you're obnoxious, you're stuck up, and whatnot. You're bossy." But know that it's probably not true, and that um, you should continue being as confident as you are. I think the way forward in terms of gender-based issues that women face at work is that people need to start taking it seriously. One of the issues is that people don't believe women when they come out, and whether it's to talk about sexual predators, harassers, and things like that, which are also rife in non-governmental organizational spaces. As it's not a secret or anything, but sexual predators are rife in NGO spaces. So one of the struggles has been getting people to believe victims when they voice out the harm that they have faced. So we need more mechanisms that actually prioritize women who have the courage to voice out, and we need to make sure women don't face so much repercussions from voicing out that they've been harmed. There's just too many mechanisms to gaslight the experience of sexual violence towards women in a lot of workplaces. So it's a work in progress, but we definitely need to, push for the sexual harassment bill to be passed. That's like the first step forward, and I hope that everyone who continues working on this goes ahead fearlessly.